What do you get when you combine a young group of Pharaoh-shaped changers who have a dream? They are fighting tradition. They may win, they may not. Who knows when you're a dreamer, because dreams are hard to kill. Today we're talking about the Ahadi. Hello everyone, welcome to the Maple Table. My name's Nathaniel. This is a channel where we discuss lore around some of your favorite role-playing games and mine. If that's something you're interested in, I would love to have you join me at the table. So you can hit that subscribe button, there's a community Discord server, and there's also a Patreon. Link is all in the description below. While the Ahadi came into existence because of Blacktooth, I'm not actually going to talk too much about Blacktooth himself. I have done a whole playlist up here of Blacktooth and the Ajaba. For those of you who may not have seen it, to recap, Blacktooth was awful. He was a tyrant, he had a changing breed of were-lions called the Simba, and they ruled Africa with an iron fist. A lot of blood was spilt in the name of just keeping power and oppressing the different changing breeds that were there. And after a very long period of time, when his bloodlust had finally been satisfied, he finally stopped killing the other Pharaoh that were living in the area, and this is where the Ahadi idea starts to take shape. Ahadi is a Swahili word, and what it actually means is promise. The long version is coming right up. The short version is it's a collective of many of the Pharaoh and the changing breeds who lived in Africa, forming a coalition to fight against Blacktooth and the Endless Storm, which was his pride.
Okay, here we go. The short version.
It's an African beast courts. Take the Eastern beast courts. It's now in Africa. That's the short version. The Ahadi was actually formed by two changing breeds. One of the founders was an Ajaba woman by the name of Kisasi, and the other founder was a Bhagera called Walks with Might, or at least that's what his name was. Outside of Blacktooth, these are some major names for the African continent, at least when it comes to were-creatures. When Kesasi was young, she was able to see the worm presence all around her. She grew up in the tyranny of Blacktooth, kind of the height of his horrific reign. Maybe it's part of a motherly nature that she possesses, or maybe it's simply because she's an Ajaba. Maybe it's because she is the epitome of an optimist. And you would have to be one to want to form a coalition of Pharaoh in Africa after everything that continent has gone through. She was able to see that Africa was suffering. I mean, anybody who looked was going to be able to see that. It's not that she saw the wounds, but rather she knew what needed to be done to heal the wounds. Africa had banes of pestilence. This is a real problem. Banes of disease. There were major banes of famine. People's spirits were broken, and this is what allowed Fomori and even more banes to congregate and thrive in that area. The Ajaba's role for this whole continent was to eliminate those banes, to find the sources of those corruptions and root them out. But since the Ajaba had basically been purged, that wasn't happening. Kisasi, seeing all of this hurt and all of this damage done to her home, this is what drove her to the decision that Blacktooth had to go. Now, during the end of Blacktooth's reign, he had become paranoid, he had become slow. And by the time he was able to know what was happening with the formation of the Ahadi, or in the initial stages of its formation, and who was responsible, he sent out assassins to try to kill Kisasi and Walks with Might. At this point, it was just too late. The roots of the idea had taken and more members were joining. Kisasi did have an attempt on her life from Blacktooth, like I just said. She was saved, however, by an emissary of the Naga. That's right, the Naga and even the Ananasi had grown tired of Blacktooth's tyrannical rule, and they had been working to put their own assassins in place. When representatives from those tribes eventually had a meeting with Kisasi and decided to join the Ahadi, she gained access to two factions that already had assassins in place to take care of Blacktooth. Anyone who is interested can join the Ahadi, but they have to follow a couple of rules. I'll tell you who joins after I tell you what they agree to do first. If you don't accept these rules, you are not allowed in. The first rule of the Ahadi is every member must perform their duty to Gaia above all else. Members need to help each other. This is an important one, and one that you would think would be very easy to follow. There's a few stipulations to this one though. The help requested has to be within your means as a species or as a pharaoh to give, and it must line up with your own intended purpose as a pharaoh. Members must also cooperate, even when it's inconvenient. That is a big ask. The organizational style of each of the members must remain the way it is. Basically, you get to keep your traditions and the way you've done things. Spiritual pacts are to be respected, whether you understand them or agree with them or not. And lastly, cairns and other holy places within the continent of Africa can be used by any Ahadi member as long as the use is reasonable and in line with Gaia and her interests. Now, with some of these rules, they are very open to interpretation. So there is a central council of elder members from the different changing breeds, the different tribes, who sit on this council, and they provide guidance, they provide their arbitration as well. So as I promised, let's talk a little bit about who the members of the Ahadi are, and some of them will surprise you. The Ajaba, that one's not surprising. There are actually some Guru tribes in there as well, the Silent Striders, and the Kucha Ikundua. You also have the Makole and the Corvid breed of the Makunguru. Now, there's also some Bastet tribes in here as well. You have the Bhagera, you have the Bubasti and the Swara tribes, and the last one, which is probably the most surprising, is the Simba tribe. The Simba are also members of the Ahadi. Kisasi knew that in order to repair the continent of Africa, she and many of the other pharaohs would just have to get past what the Simba did. Allowing certain members of the Simba to join the Ahadi is not a decision that was well received. It has caused a lot of problems, and it will continue to cause a lot of problems until some of the changing breeds are able to get past their hurts with this. They may never get past it, but from a storytelling perspective, this is a great tool to create tension or use tension in this manner. So from a storytelling side of things, this is great. After the fall of Blacktooth, the group that had formed this coalition to fight him, now known as the Ahadi, had decided that they could remain friends. This was working. We can give this a shot. It had worked for them for thousands of years in Egypt before all of this had happened. Egypt is an important place in World of Darkness, and I'll cover that in just a second. The problem now is with Blacktooth's death. It set loose some very dark, very powerful spiritual presence that is now running loose among the deserts in Africa. The vampires that he had allied himself with are also unchecked, and there will be plenty of opportunities and stories to tell in Africa using the Ahadi because there's just so much going on there right now. Now, as with all new ideas, not everyone is on board with the new group. Many of the Ajaba are not cool with the members of the Simba being part of the Ahadi. They really want their revenge. And some members of the Simba tribe would actually prefer to go back to the days of Blacktooth, even though it wasn't that great for them either. The Ahadi alliance is very fragile. They are trying to balance giving back the land that Blacktooth stole, the places of power that Blacktooth stole, back to those tribes that owned them. They are very much outnumbered by the other tribes or the other changing breeds that live in Africa. But the Ahadi are much more organized when it comes to fighting, or even just the organizational structure in general. So they do have an advantage of being well organized and well prepared for any kind of situation. They are trying to avoid war, and they will take the more peaceful route, but building trust is definitely taking some time. Egypt is important in the World of Darkness as it is viewed in the setting as the birthplace of humanity or anything supernatural as well. Not to mention supernatural beings existed and cohabitated together in this area in early human times. And with this, I believe the Ahadi are trying to recreate something akin to that in Africa. So what are my final thoughts on the Ahadi? As I said in the beginning, the Ahadi is a group of young shape changers who have dreams, big aspirations to do something. They are challenging the societal norms or the traditions that they have come up with. This makes for some great stories. This would also mean that you can use them in your games to do something non-traditional. If you're going with an Ahadi story, it would also make sense that various members of changing breeds could be working together. So this might be a great way to integrate some of the other changing breeds if you have some players at your table who just want to mix and match. However, the way that this group is perceived by others who are not part of it is that they expect it to fail. Some think 10 years, some think 5 years, some think a little bit longer than that. It's hard to say. Optimism is sometimes really hard to kill. Resources will be slightly limited. There won't be a ton of spirits that are well connected with the Ahadi. There are a few, but there's not a whole lot of them. But speaking of a group of growing optimists, I would like to thank my patrons. This video topic was voted on by my Maple level patrons, so I hope the rest of you have also enjoyed this. Autumn Alchemist, Orbs McMillans, RRSPQ, Ducky, Vox, Caneroot, Warpony, Get of Math Rocks, BA Bravo, Arutvin, The First Layer, Bones Malone, Westheimer, and Ain't No Waifu. Thank you all for the support for myself and for the channel. If you would like to learn a little bit more about the Simba, I have a video on the screen for you now. My name's Nathaniel. This has been The Maple Table. Thank you so much for your subscription. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.